Thanks, Chair. So we are now live streaming and we're good to go anytime.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to call to order this Pemberton Valley Utility Services meeting for January 12th. And I will look for a motion, and because I'm remote, please speak up when you're making a motion. Motion to approve the agenda as presented. Moved by Director Mack, seconded by Director Ramsden. Any opposed? Motion carries. So we have a number of delegations. We're going to move right into it. Is Anna Scott joining us live?
She is remote, so I will admit her.
Perfect. Can you hear us, Ms. Scott?
Hi, sorry, I just missed all of that. My sound wasn't working.
No, we just got you in here, so welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. You're here to talk to us about PVUS, and you got 5 minutes for presentation. I'll turn it over to you.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, good afternoon, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to present our final report and next year's application as well for PDIF funding. My name is Anna Scott. I'm the director and shelter manager of the Pemberton Animal Wellbeing Society. I'll just jump in with a little overview on who we are and what we do. PVUS is Pemberton's only animal shelter providing relief and care for animals, not only in the village of Pemberton, but also Whistler, Squamish, Mount Currie, Naquaqua, Skatine, Tupela, Darcy, Birkin, Lillooet, and more. Our services include providing shelter and veterinary care for unwanted and uncared for animals, providing adoption services for families looking to add new pets to their household, providing spay and neuter support to low-income families, providing housing for stray animals, and also providing community support and education. We currently operate out of a property on Airport Road provided to us by the village of Pemberton, and also heavily rely on foster families in our community. We work very closely with WAG and Whistler and receive a lot of support from them. We are also fully volunteer run besides our part-time shelter manager position. That was new this year thanks to our 2022 PDIF funding that we received. So the first part of our presentation will just be a recap on how our year went in 2022 with receiving $15,000 of funding from the PDIF fund. We had initially applied for long-term funding, but there was not enough funds last year to disperse for all the long-term applicants. So we are applying again for 2023. The project our organization provided with the PDIF grant was to have our first paid part-time position at PVUS. This position is the paid part-time shelter manager. This was very successful this year and allowed us to manage and operate the day-to-day shelter tasks much more smoothly. We were able to care for a higher volume of animals this year, which was much needed as our shelters everywhere in BC are completely overflowing right now. Some of our funds also went towards veterinary treatment for animals in our communities, shelter supplies, cost of transporting animals to and from vet appointments as well. With veterinarians being so overrun in our communities right now as well, we frequently do have to drive to Squamish for veterinary treatment, which adds up cost-wise with gas prices at the moment. Having a shelter manager over the past year allowed us to take on a higher volume of animals into our care. We successfully adopted out 55 animals in 2022 and provided about 10 more with spay or neuter surgeries, vaccines, and medical attention. We helped 17 families with surrendering animals they could no longer care for or didn't want. And we also took in many more strays with no known addresses or owners. Having the funding also helped us feel confident taking on that higher volume of animals, as we knew we had the funds to confidently cover extra veterinary costs. It also was very helpful knowing we had some extra set away for major emergencies, which there seems to be more and more of these days with lots of stray animals running around. We've been able to facilitate sustainability with this program, as it has allowed our shelter manager to commit their 100% attention and time to PAWS. We have been able to hire on more volunteers, put more procedures in place, respond more promptly to phone calls and emails as well. We were able to also hire on a volunteer treasurer to help get our accounts in better order and recruit some new members to be added to our board of directors in 2023. We've spent lots of time forming meaningful connections with veterinarians and other professionals in the community, which has also taken some pressure directly off our shelter manager to be doing everything on their own. Our community is only growing, and unfortunately, we can only do so much as the small team at PAWS to help the overpopulated and unwanted animals in our area. We can sustainably and successfully keep running at the capacity we have now, but in order to grow and keep up with this growing community and make more of an impact on the overpopulated animal issue, we're going to need more support from other members of the community, such as chief and councils, bylaw, local officers, etc. We will continue to work on making new connections in our communities and hopefully grow the amount of people who want to be hands-on helping with the large unwanted animal issue we have around here. So moving forward to second half of the presentation, which is our application funding or for funding in 2023. It's basically asking, we're running the same program as we did in 2022 to have the paid part-time shelter manager. So yeah, this basically, as the only shelter in Pemberton, we take on a very high volume of animals for our size. And we solely were relying on volunteers to run the shelter, which can affect the number we can take in at any given time. This is because volunteers need to prioritize their paid jobs first in order to cover their own living expenses. This also makes it so volunteers are often not available at some of our busiest times of the year, such as Christmas, as they are busy with their own lives. By offering this paid part-time position again at the shelter, we would have someone consistently available, prioritize PAWS and the animals in our care. This would benefit the residents of Pemberton and the SLRD by providing a more reliable animal rescue service like we had this past year. It would provide the residents with confidence that they have a reliable point of contact when they're seeking urgent advice or have come across an animal in need. Our shelter manager position is responsible for managing volunteers and schedules, overseeing animal care, which includes feeding, watering, exercise, vet treatments, vet trips, cleaning cages, etc. Managing our adoptions, which is advertising animals currently available, vetting applicants, and finding suitable homes for each animal. It would include handling administrative tasks such as keeping records of all animals, filing, responding to inquiries, and managing social media accounts, general upkeep and maintenance of the shelter, and any other tasks that would need to be actioned. And hopefully in 2023, organizing some new projects such as better fencing and possibly maybe a new trailer to house our cats and dogs. If we do not receive the long-term funding again, PAWS will continue to face staffing challenges as our volunteers will not be able to prioritize PAWS over their other paying jobs. This presents challenges when keeping up with daily tasks around the shelter maintenance, and responding to inquiries both over email and social media platforms in efficient and timely manners. Without this funding, we'll have to continue to turn away animals in need due to lack of time, resources, and staff to tend to the animals. Should the funding be denied, we would try and seek donations from larger businesses in the community for items such as a new trailer, building supplies, pet care supplies, etc. We would also look into hosting another large annual fundraiser on top of our Santa Claus events and maybe adding some extra small ones throughout the year. This has been one of the most challenging years animal rescue organizations have faced to date. We are truly seeing the real pandemic pet issue hit hard. Most animals coming into our care are about the 1.5 to 3 year age range. Even with funding and more support this year, we are still having to turn away some animals as we don't physically have the room for them to be housed. We can't stress enough how important receiving this funding is to the welfare of the animals in our community. So thank you very much for listening to the presentation, and I would love to take any questions anyone has.
Ms. Scott, appreciate the presentation. Any questions?
Just a comment.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank you and your organization for everything you do. You've been in business now for quite a number of years, and you've grown and grown, and you've done just a wonderful job for this community. So thank you very much, and don't stop.
Thank you. It's nice to hear.
Thank you. Awesome. Well, thank you for being here this afternoon. Echo Director Mack's comments. Very much appreciate the work you're doing, and happy to see your application here. So thanks very much.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Kristen, is Chamber live or remote?
We are.
Right.
Thank you. Chair, if we might just request a brief moment so I can do a little technical instruction for our presentation, get everyone settled.
Yeah, let me know when you're ready.
I know where you're at. Okay.
Sure.
So just briefly, that presentation is running through Zoom.
Yep.
And once you're ready, that should go the slide forward.
Perfect.
Any issues, Natalie will coordinate with you this one.
All right. Thank you. All right. We're good to go.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark Rojan. With me is Natalie Langman and Adam Adams. Adam is our treasurer. Natalie is our executive director for the chamber, and I serve as vice president of the board. We did send through a presentation that's like 16 slides, and I recognize we only have 5 minutes, so we're not going to rush through the slides. The intent was going to share that with you so you could refer to it at your own leisure. But if we could bring up the presentation and maybe just go to the second slide, which kind of calls out the funding that we're looking for. Are we good? That would be me.
There's a slight delay.
Okay, there we go. Perfect. So I want to just cover off just a few brief points in the 5 minutes that we have. And the first point is that the chamber plays a really critical role in our community. Second point, in order to deliver and build on this important role, we need a talented and professional team in place. The funding that we receive through this initiative helps us kind of continue on our journey to sustainability. And then finally, we've got a reputation for, keeping our commitments as far as, where the funding is spent. So in terms of the critical role that we as a chamber play in the community, this is both for our business community, which we're known for, but also for our broader community. When we think about the business community and we think about our Buy Local initiative, which celebrates both our businesses and our community patrons, operating the business visitor center, which we do every year, being a conduit for business concerns that are raised during things like the hydro outage, organizing the free coaching sessions at the visitor center through our partnership with Community Futures, or our job posting opportunities that are available on our newly created job posting board. So we're there to support our local business community. But additionally, I think the chamber brings people together in a more broad scale. When we think about the hydro outage, we organized a family-friendly event in the midst of a big challenge in our community, as we all remember. And then for the all candidates meeting that we organized in conjunction with PORCA, to bring the community together and to hear for those that were running for government. So that's a bit about how we see the critical role that we play. Obviously, in order to do that, we need a professional and capable team. And we do have Natalie as our executive director, who's in a part-time capacity, as well as Tina Buchan, who is our mid support in a part-time capacity as well. Tina runs the visitor center during the summer months. So this team executes on the initiatives that we have in place, and without their employment, we simply cannot accomplish all the things that we've done. So this funding that we asked for, which is $27,500, is really helps us on our journey. So the chamber's been on a journey since sort of 2018. When I joined the board, it was sort of Prior, we kind of had, kind of paper-based files, and then we've kind of digitized that. We always had this plan to how can we serve our community and our members better? And we knew we needed to have that executive director who is in, day out to support the needs of our community. And so 2020, we did hire, our first executive director. That has remained in place. And this funding that we asked for and that we've received before really helps us journey to a more sustainable future, right? With these individuals in place right now, we're researching more funding opportunities, more revenue opportunities, more events. How can we eventually kind of take the training wheels off, if you will, of the funding and kind of, go on our own, right? So it's a really critical time for us as we're on that journey. And the last point, the chamber, we've got a reputation for keeping our commitments. And when we look at the funding that we've asked for and received before, it has been spent exactly how we've asked for it. So with that, I'll pause and certainly take any questions. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Sorry, I'd just like to thank you guys for all your hard work. My husband and I are part owner of a company that's involved with the Chamber of Commerce, and I have been personally involved as well when I had a little business here back in the day before everything was digitalized. But good work, you guys. You've really grown, I think, the organization, and it's very on a much more professional level now. And you've got so many different businesses from all walks of life and all types of businesses. So it must be challenging, but
yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you. It's challenging and rewarding as well, because I mean, when you look at the impact that we can have, just even from an overall morale in the community, like if you look at the Buy Local campaign and the social media campaign that Natalie ran in terms of showing, what people buying from local businesses and really celebrating that, I think that brings the morale of the community up. So it's really exciting to see where we're going to take it under under Natalie's leadership as the executive director. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, no, echo that. I mean, the Pemberton Chamber's always done great work in our community, but I feel over the last number of years, you guys have really elevated your game, to put it simply. The Buy Local program is awesome, and it's just an example of, I think that's, for you guys to try to come in and summarize the work you do in 5 minutes, we know that's impossible, but definitely notice a greater presence. I think a lot of it started through the pandemic and beyond now from the chamber. So appreciate the work you guys do. Appreciate the way you guys manage your funds. Hearing that you're looking for other, funding opportunities to self-sustain. But I think you guys do a really good job with the funds you do have. So thanks for all that.
Thank you very much. And the presentation that we sent through, if you have a look at that at your own leisure, if you have any other questions on that, please don't hesitate to let us know.
Any other comments from the committee? Or we good?
Yeah, just I guess to really thank you so much for what you do, because it's a great thing for the community, obviously. So
thank you.
Well done.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, you guys. Take care. Thanks for being here.
Okay, that's not to look. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sorry, Laura, I didn't see your hand. Director Ramsden, I didn't see your hand from here.
okay.
Again, I can't, the way the camera scans, if you're not speaking, the camera doesn't focus on you, so I won't necessarily see your hand. So just say your name or whatever, and I'll make sure to catch you.
Yes, of course. You guys are amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. So, Chair, Ms. Richardson isn't here yet. She
Okay.
isn't. So, Ms. Lynch is not here yet. Maybe we could just recess for a few moments.
Okay, sure. Let's take a couple of minutes to wait for our next delegation. Lisa doesn't show up. We can see if we can move on after that. Okay.
Thank you. We will mute the room.
guys are so high tech.
Hi there. Ms. Richardson has joined us.
Well, hello, Miss Richardson.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Nice to see you.
Yeah, good. I'm sorry I'm not there to see you live. So we'll bring the meeting back to order. And thank you for joining us. Are we good, Kristen? Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, we'll get back to our delegations. Ms. Richardson, thanks for joining us and speaking on behalf of the Wellness Almanac. I know you're passionate about your work. We have a lineup, so we have only time for a 5-minute presentation and some questions, and I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, perfect. Natalie, will you cue up the presentation for me, please? Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm grateful always to have the support of the funding, for sure, and also the chance to just reflect on the year, because I get into that like, okay, post every day, and sometimes you just get into the role of things. So the chance to just sort of sit and reflect and be like, okay, what happened? Where are we at? What the hell was 2022 all about? So it's a lovely opportunity to kind of reflect. I did that, and so the bulk of this presentation is that kind of reflection. So I think we can skim through that quite quickly because there's not really anything, like new or radical in there to share with you. But then there are a few sort of insights that just sort of I wanted to pull out and share with the table, and then maybe in the chance for questions and conversation, we can just sort of address some of that, because it's actually lovely, not just for me to report back to you, but to like invite any guidance or thoughts or feedback that you guys would like to offer, because the nature of the Wellness Almanac is this sort of quirky little orphan that doesn't have a legal structure. It isn't set up as a non-profit society. We haven't done that. We've sort of just filled the gap after this initial steering committee 10 years ago. It folded, and then we've sort of been like, oh, is it nukuntua? Like, what is the nature of it? And so I'm always very conscious of the fact that there's like this, there's no formal accountability apart from me coming and saying, here's what I do with your money. And so I do, want to open the opportunity for that. And I'm always sort of checking myself to be like, is this becoming Lisa Richardson's vanity project? Like, can we make, just, so I kind of want to flag that as well to make sure that that's an open, an open invitation for feedback on that front. So Natalie, would you skip through this for me, please? Just to recap, this is essentially what the Wellness Almanac is. It's a communications platform and a community resource. It can set up really as a non-commercial, ad-free, politically agnostic space to engage community on matters of wellness as the platform for then discussing what reconciliation between our communities could look like. And if we're sort of like well within ourselves and whole within ourselves, then we can actually start to bridge those spaces. So it's really meant to be like, it was designed as kind of like a foyer, like sort of like a safe entry space for people to start thinking about some of these things before we could then go deeper into more serious rooms together, I guess. Yeah, we can skip forward. We post daily. It's like a daily blog. That's sort of the essence of it. The funding overview, and I'm here essentially to report to the second year of funding, 2022, of a 3-year long-term funding commitment that you guys have made for us. So $12,000 comes from this fund. It's matched by $6,000 from Lillooet Nation. That's an ongoing sort of partnership where each of the 3 entities has contributed 33% for the last 10 years. But it's new for us to be as part of the PDAF fund over the last couple of years. Additionally, last year, I secured $7,500 from the Whistler Blackcomb Foundation, which was kind of a surprise and random. So I'll talk a little bit about what we were able to do with that. So the essence of how we spend the funding on the other side is $15,000 goes to me for
project management. That's a $1,250 stipend a month, basically. $4,000 I have committed to Indigenous content, to accelerating and incubating Indigenous content. So we had a poet in residence who submitted a poem for us once a week, guest editors or guest Instagrammers, partly in recognition that if I've asked guest Instagrammers from within the Pemberton community, people have the capacity to do that off the side of their desks. But for a lot of Lillooet folks, they don't necessarily have a lot of spare capacity to do something. It helps to actually be resourced for that. And it's a recognition. And I think we're increasingly understanding how important, if people are sharing culture with us and helping us understand things, that they deserve to be compensated for that. So that's been a lovely piece to have there. There's about $500 in operational costs of like running the website. It's pretty low. That's a pretty low line item, which is nice because we're like, what can we do for not very much? Let's run a website. And then $6,000 out of that Whistle Black Home Foundation grant, we this year, because we were coming out of the pandemic, we're able to explore like what does it mean to be emerging out of our holes and to come back into community, and are there workshops or are there things that we can support to like to learn how to come back together. Yes, we can flick through to the next one, please, Natalie. I don't think I need to go through this. I just sort of went through the wellness almanac to be like, what happened in 2022? Like, where were we at? And just like bullet pointed some of the things of the year. It's like we started out so to March, like it was very heartwarming to me to see like Jen acknowledge at the beginning of the year, like reconciliation and KRS, like to start to see like leadership in the community really addressing some of these, some of these topics. And it got such good response in social media, like the community want to hear that kind of leadership of like, where is our government at and are we addressing this? And the tone that she struck was just so brilliant in terms of like, we have to acknowledge this even though we're not really sure what to do. So I wanted to call that out because I think that was quite fantastic. Another thing I want to call out is like just how much we're seeing in the community, a more collaborative mindset. So sort of seeing like, and this is so important for the Wellness Almanac in terms of thinking about what do we do with our resources. Like if we don't partner, we're all chipping away at a massive problem with not very much cohesion or not really much ability to change things. But if we can sort of partner and align with other people, like our resources and our capacity, it's never really going to be what we need it to be unless we can actually work together. And we're seeing that, when I sort of track community news and the things that we've been sharing, definitely seeing like just such wonderful things for that, like the SLD and the PBTA and Stewardship Pemberton all working together to reroute a bike trail to accommodate sharp-tailed snakes, like just such like all of these kind of things happening. What was the other one that I called out? PORCA, IMBA and the Indigenous, what's ILSA stand for? Indigenous Sports Academy. I can't remember what the L stands for, like take a kid mountain biking day. So sort of pulling all of these partnerships in so that we can work with whatever community resources we have, which feels like a huge thing. We can keep moving on this. I think the other thing that I wanted to flag, but it'll come up a little bit, is just, like actually noting like 2022, we saw interest rates go from 0.5% to 4.25 and it hasn't changed. So this sort of it's still, not that it hasn't changed, but it hasn't stopped yet. Like we don't know where the cap of that is. So it sort of comes to one of the insights that I wanted to share of like capacity, like working with capacity is one of the issues that we have. We're also not the only, like, in terms of like the silo and coming out of the silos, like the Wellness Almanac isn't by any means the only entity in the community that is trying to look at how do we build better relationships. And so like this pit cook that happened at Signal Hill is such a brilliant example of this, I think. Like the whole school community, it arose out of an initiative of one of the teachers at Signal Hill who said, I think it'd be cool to have a community garden. So then one woman who's on the pack who writes grants was like, oh, I can take that on for you, got the grant for it, built a garden. And then the final piece of the funding was to have a huge big feast. And it was all about cultural integration, really. And so Tanina Williams got super involved, and the volunteer, like it was a handful of volunteers who were doing this, who were up at 5 a.m. digging holes in the school sand pit so that they could like get a fire going and pit cook food and chopping vegetables that had been donated by people and led by the cultural workers so that all the kids could have this cultural experience. So I just want to name that there are some beautiful initiatives that are taking place, but at the same time, it's like one little thing here and one little thing here, and there's sort of no overarching guide. I see that that's what we're missing a little bit, is like that kind of overarching guidance. But that's them up at 5 a.m, like getting ready to cook a feast for the school and peel veggies and just celebrate what it means to be part of this community that we're part of. And you can keep flicking through. This is mostly a bit of visual. There's some more photos of the pit cook, Tanina, like leading the kids on the day, and then volunteers all coming together to like spear the salmon and like plank it out and everything. Yeah, if we can keep going. And part of the Wellness Almanac, I think the role is like amplify those things. It's like, I don't have necessarily the resources to be running that kind of programming, but everybody should know about that. You know? So that's sort of like the idea is like, I'm always scanning and working out how do we lift all of that up so that people know about it and we can keep building on it. I did a quick reflection of the content. You know, like 35% this year of the blog posts were really about that sort of community events, community initiatives, what's happening, what's sort of a community group doing, just trying to get, you know, grow that sense of community that we have. 303 posts we made, a little bit less this year because I didn't keep going through the summer, partly because of this Active Hope Climate Squad work that had happened through March, April and May, which I'll tell you a little bit about. But up there, we're generating, where are we at, like 38,000 views. So that's 5,000 more views to the website overall than last year. And even with fewer posts, because last year we probably had 350 posts, and reaching 25,789 visitors, which is also a 3,500 increase over last year. So I kind of like just tracking those stats to be like, oh, are people still reading this? Like, is it still relevant? Like, our community has changed so much in the last couple of years. There's so many new people. It's like, do they even know about it? Is anybody reading it? So just that we're continuing to track increasing like readership and engagement, that seems positive. So if it's not useful, let's not put the money here, right? And then also just to be, I mean, I know it's the vulnerability of the project is whatever my blind spots are. And so I'm like, I know that I'm always on the library's website, or, you know, I know there's certain things that I'm tracking. And so I always like to track like which community organizations are we amplifying? Are there some there that I'm not involved in that are still being supported and amplified? Like, have I kept my radar wide enough? And yeah, there's like 40 different community organizations that were sort of amplifying, 15 different guest contributors who were invited to come and be part, like contribute in some way. So still sort of like, you know, are we trying to, yeah, that's the Lisa Richardson Vanity Project check, right? Keep going, that's piece.
Lisa, I'm gonna need you to take us towards the end of your presentation too.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Okay, so you can power through here. Natalie, please, if you just skip. This is just in some ways my due diligence and the photos of the things that I've just shared with you. You can keep going. Tanina did a wool weaving class that we supported at the library, which was fantastic. You can keep going. Keep ripping through here. We two of the events that we did host were free forest therapy, forest bathing sessions for people. Like, we invited people to come out of the pandemic and come outside and like experience forest therapy, free forest therapy sessions with a forest therapy guide. You can keep going. And then what grew out of that was this Active Hope Climate Squad. So a group of people who were invited to come together and meet on a regular basis for 8 weeks and work through the spiral of the work that reconnects. And it's all really about how are we building our inner resources to deal with hard stuff, which is kind of what we're in right now, I think. So if you can keep going forward for me, Natalie, please. And then I just wanted to share from here, like, here's sort of the highlights and learnings of what I'm seeing. This isn't going to surprise any of you. Like, capacity is the new pivot. Everyone is maxed out, like community members, organizations, like there's just a capacity shortage everywhere. And so part of how I feel this really impacts the work that I'm like trying to steward is like, who has got the energy and the time to also be thinking about reconciliation when we're trying to like be like, I've got parents calling and they're yelling at me because there's not enough gymnastics classes. Or so if you want to skip forward again, Natalie, to the next one, it's sort of like, how do we deal with the immediate concerns and also the sort of future steading that we want to be doing, like the direction that we want to be growing into? Like, I just think that's a live question that I don't have answers for. There's another insight that's been really live for me in this past year, because I've attended quite a lot of workshops, like the Squamish-Lillooet Cultural Centre hosted one on decolonisation. Like, there were quite a few sort of learning workshops for non-Indigenous people. It became apparent to me that we're not learning fast enough. Like, for Indigenous people who are in these sort of more upfront roles of guiding and holding, it felt to me, and this is just my impression, the frustration and the fatigue is more palpable. They're just like, we've been living this for so long and it's been in all the headlines now, and you guys still aren't. We're like, where are you? You're still not really with us. You're still not really up to speed. You're still inadvertently causing harm. There's still microaggressions. So it feels like this sort of gap between where we need to be and where, you know, like where we'd like to be is big. And you can skip forward another one for me, please, Natalie. There's sort of a trauma gap that I observe in terms of the just lived familiarity with trauma that I think most First Nations people are in, and the awareness, the trauma literacy that non-First Nations people are missing, that when we're sort of approached with it, we don't quite know what to do with it. We don't have a lot of capacity to navigate it. We get defensive, like we don't necessarily have the physical resourcing to be in a space when someone is like sharing a trauma or acting out of trauma. So it feels like a capacity piece is like, how do we as individuals actually just build our own personal trauma literacy? And how do we make that a priority when we're also fighting fires, reading through massive agendas, like just like dealing with like a cost of like the increase in the cost of living, like how do we balance those two things? And so that's sort of what's guiding my thinking as we go into 2023 and the last year of funding. It's like what, like the Wellness Almanac is a resource, but then on top of that, what other resourcing tools can we try and incubate in the community? And if we skip forward to the next one, please. Yeah, so this focus is sort of resourcing and relationships. Like, are there practices that we can start to like learn about or share about or introduce to people? So, I mean, we're starting, like I'm offering free workshops at the library this month and the next month. And if there's interest from people, it'll be ongoing once a month on journaling as a practice of self-care, and like really through the lens of like, how is this a self-care practice? So hopefully people who attend will like develop their own practice for journaling so that they've got a free, easy tool to help regulate their nervous system so that they can then be in community and contributing to like a bigger healing challenge in a constructive way. And basically what's needed for that is expanding out of comfort zones, and that's mine and that's everybody's, and that's the bigger invitation. Natalie, what's next? Could you skip forward to the next one? Yeah, so the funding overview for this year, this is what we're doing. Thank you for the continued funding. We've also secured another grant from Western Blackcomb Foundation for $8,900 with a view to kind of creating some kind of like a rumbling or a reading towards reconciliation book club, that idea being that it's Indigenous led. And so it's sort of like I am hoping to build a group of kind of advisors and pay a group of Indigenous people to sort of lead it and be like, okay, I'm a white woman and I like book clubs, but how would it work for you? And if you could actually invite people in this region to consider a piece of content, whether it's a blog post or a podcast or a book, what would you choose? And then would you like to share your reflections on that, rather than, you know, like, I mean, I've seen it sort of like, oh, how do we do reconciliation? Well, my book club's going to read Richard Wagamees, and it doesn't necessarily help us cross the gap. So that's what we're trying to do. Go to some scary places, but grow together. And then this sort of is a final image of the pit cook, because that's that future steading piece, right? It's like, what does this community look like when those kids walk across the graduation stage? You know, like 5 years from now, could it be more genuinely reconciled? You know, that'll be one of my kids. So.
Thanks, Lisa. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I think the Wellness Almanac holds an important place in our valley and in our community. So thank you for your passion and your investment. We're running a little over time for other delegations. Are there any quick questions or comments before we move on? I can't see hands, so.
I just have a comment. Thank you for it's difficult work. And it's long and lengthy, and it's not something that happens overnight, right? And thank you for all your hard efforts. A couple of things came to mind when I was reading the agenda earlier, and I was just wondering, with the wonderful facility that is now belonging to the Lillooet Nation with the outdoor school, I'm wondering if that location can create a beautiful space for, you know, maybe some meetings and consultations and so on. And do you have a liaison person with the Almanac from the Lillooet Nation and the Naquaqua?
Not
that sit with you, you know, on the board as an equal. Like, you don't know as an equal, but as, you know, as a contributor.
Yeah, there's different relationships with people who contribute, Jan, but there's not a board, and I think that's a vulnerability. And so I think with the like the book club idea is to bring together maybe like a council of advisors from Lillooet and Nquatqua and be like, here, like what, you know, like how can we resource you to spend the time to contribute to this conversation, but also, you know, like how can like is there a way that you can help steer? But I think even that is kind of like, I feel like there's sort of a shift to like, how do we move from like, we all need to do and extract your wisdom to how do we just be in a more of a listening, receptive place? I hear what you're saying, and there are conversations about what that school space might be, but my understanding is that Lillooet is still looking, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to get it sort of habitable and safe and up to code and everything, but also there's a vision of it being quite a safe healing space. And I'm not sure whether having it as a healing space for Lillooet and having it as a like open space for everybody to meet is quite there yet, but I can't really speak to that. That's not.
Yeah, I meant by invitation from them, of course, but but maybe it needs to be more of a structure. Maybe the Almanac overall needs to be more of a structured board. That's only one comment I'm seeing. And the other one was like, for information out there, is the Nquatqua have a radio station. And I'm wondering if that could be maybe a beneficial use to, you know, for communications and have interviews of, you know, poets and writers and so on, and weavers or whatever. So that's the only two things that I thought about.
Great thought, thank you.
But thank you for your work.
They play the best rock and roll music, period.
Yeah.
24/7.
Can you get it like where we are, or like how broad is the?
Up at the ranch, you do?
Little Creek.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, yeah, for sure. It's amazing.
And drumming they do? Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit, Blink Andrew is the brains behind the thing, and it's just amazing.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
No advertising, no nothing. Just music.
Well, you know, I think an afternoon talk show or something or whatever, you know. Lots of people listen more than you think, I bet.
Oh, no, I know, but they listen to it for that good music.
Yeah.
We have delegations waiting. We're gonna call this conversation for later. Any other final comments for Ms. Richardson? If not, I'll thank you again for your work and your passion. Oh, am I missing a hand?
Yeah, you're missing a hand.
Sorry, Chair.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you very much for the presentation today. And I think the work that you're doing is really important. And the approach you're taking, I think is fantastic so far.
Thank you.
Did I miss anybody else? All good? All right, thanks again, Lisa. Take care. We'll see you soon. I can't see the crowd. Is Miss Lynch in the house, or is she remote? Excellent.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just take that moment to get set up.
You bet.
Now, is
Yeah, thank you. I believe we're ready to go.
Awesome. Good to see you, Anna. I'm sorry I'm not there live. Thanks for joining us. If you are good to go, the table's yours.
Thank you for having me, and hello to everybody that's here. It's nice to see people in person this year and some new faces. So for anyone that hasn't met me or seen me before, I'm Anna Lynch, and I'm the current Executive Director for the Pemberton Arts Council. Last year in this presentation, I went through some of the plans we had for 2022. And so this year, I just wanted to quickly touch on what we had aimed for last year and how we did. So that's what the presentation is. So we can get that onto Zoom. All right. Let's see. I think this thing is working. Oh, there you go. A bit slow. There we go. So our missions, visions, and values. I basically just put ticks next to all the things that we hope to do. We did really well in using our time this year to look at these missions and try and address them in different ways. So we developed new partnerships with businesses and local government. We are still working on stronger relationships with Indigenous leaders. We aimed to grow local awareness of the Pemberton Arts Council in town after a year or two of hibernation by developing different marketing strategies, increasing our membership and our partnerships. So we actually saw a 337% increase in partnerships. In numbers, that's 31 new partnerships with local businesses and organizations. And we launched a new membership program that I'll talk about in the next slide. We also increased our social media presence, which has increased kind of our viewership from about 100 views per post to 1.5K views per post, to let people know what we're doing and what we're looking to do for the future, which is great. So we can tell more people about the opportunities we are trying to provide. We aim to showcase local artists by creating unique Pemberton Arts Council programming, which we did with Mountain Muse Festival in June. We had the Outside Voices mural project at the Healthcare Centre, and then we had our third year of Art Hop, as well as diving in at the library. We also aim to provide accessible arts programs and events for the local community by providing discounts, free or scaled pricing options in as many of our projects as possible. So for Art Hop, the entire exhibition was free, and there was a free kids activity that took place during the month. Diving In was a local art exhibit that was also free on display at the library. And then the Mountain Muse Festival had a low price ticketed day at, I believe it was $15 for the ticketed event, and then a free event on the Sunday for families. So this is just a bit more about the projects we hope to do. So we had our AGM last April. With the AGM, we managed to bring on 4 new directors to our board. And then in August, we brought on a new chair, Joan Richaud, who has lots of experience in arts and culture and lots of board experience as well, which is fantastic. So we went from having about 5 members to, I believe, we have 9 right now. We relaunched our membership shortly after the AGM. And we saw an increase of 177%, which is from 47 people to 117 members now of the Arts Council, which was fantastic. Again, that helps us to get information out to the right people who are looking for arts and culture opportunities. And maybe a few of those were people that previously hadn't engaged with the Arts Council, but now with our new programming, have found ways to get involved. So the Outside Voices mural project, this is probably one of my favorite things that we managed to do this year. We ended up turning the blank wall at the healthcare center on the storage shed into a bright and colorful mural. This was down to the incredible artwork of Dave Petco. And we're hoping to continue with more murals in the years to come. And then we had the Mountain Muse Festival, as I mentioned before, in June, which had over 600 attendees. 33 paid musicians, and 12 local craft market vendors. And the photo just there is the infamous stage selfie from our headline band on the evening of the event. Art Hop, we originally wanted to reimagine it as a block party. We decided not to do that this year, just for operational reasons, but we ran it very similar to the years before. We had 21 participating artists. Many of those were new and emerging artists who had not participated in previous art hops or exhibitions. And we had 13 venues, of which I think 2 or 3 were new venues. And then lastly, we had the Diving In project, which was part of the Sea to Sky Art Alliance. It was displayed all across the Sea to Sky, and we displayed the artwork at the library with one of our local artists, Joe Sal, I hope I said that right, producing a wonderful piece of a spawning salmon. So with all of that in mind, our focuses for the year to come are creating some more fundraising initiatives. We want to pursue a diverse range of funding opportunities, including fundraising events, different grant opportunities, and sponsorship to be able to support our organization's stability and hopefully growth. We're focusing on some community input and feedback. We are looking to release a community arts survey at the end of January to gauge what's most important in arts and culture to the community right now, so that we can shape our future programming accordingly. We want to create impactful programs and events, so continue to create the events, run the events we have been that are successful and well loved, but using that data from the survey, create new events that will have an impact on the community and community wellness. And we want to focus particularly on equity in our programming. So we will be evaluating and improving our policies and procedures for our events and programs, so that they are more inclusive and equitable, and providing more opportunities to underserved community groups. That is it. If anyone has any questions.
Thank you so much. Any questions, comments? Great.
Thank you very much. Great program.
Thank you. I mean, thank you for your support. It definitely goes a long way, and yeah, we're just hoping to continue to develop and provide more programs this year. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Oh, did you have your hand up, Jen?
Yeah, I just have a question. Is the arts also include performance arts as well?
Yes. So I would say my personal feeling is we cover all of arts and culture, which includes dance, performing arts, theatre, film, photography, visual art, and music. So far this year, our focus tended to be on visual arts and music, but we would like to be able to support the other arts groups as well. So within our community survey, we're asking for some feedback on what people want to see, if anyone has any suggestions for specific groups. The other thing we are planning to do is ask for people to join some committee groups for programming from the community. And I'm going to reach out personally to some of those groups that do performing arts, dance, to see if they would like to be involved, just so that we can support them in a better way that supports their needs rather than my assumption of what they might need. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks again. The Mountain Views is one of my favorite that you guys put on, but I love the idea of a block party. I think that could be a lot of fun. But thank you for all the programming and work you guys do, and for your presentation today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Anna. We'll talk soon. Okay, next up we have Tourism Pemberton. Are we live or remote? Live, good.
Thanks, Chair. Just one moment.
Yeah.
The presentation. So Natalie and Bonner is going to put the presentation through Zoom. So you are able to control it with this. So go forward and backwards when you're ready. There is a slight delay, so on the first one, just give yourself a bit of time to go through. Thank you, Chair. I believe we're ready. And we did get notice that Mr. Meek wasn't able to join us today. So.
Oh, that's too bad. Well, thank you for being here, Mr. Mendonca, and when you're ready, the floor is yours.
Sure. Will I see the presentation or? Yeah. First of all, thank you for having us here. I want to actually put a shout out to village staff and the SLRD staff. You know, there's one thing about summer, it's having welcoming gardens and, you know, the village really looks inviting and welcoming. So we truly do appreciate that, you know, and the local parks, etc. And of course, wintertime, we still get tourists, and the fact that, you know, the snow clearing, etc., sidewalks. Yeah, great job from the perspective of tourism Pemberton. We truly do appreciate it. Okay. So we were fortunate enough to have a $20,000 budget, along with the additional funding for near fall snow clearing, which was again a tremendous event for locals that wanted to use Nairn Provincial Park, and the fact that we kept traffic off the highway where they were parking in previous years, and we knew that that was a danger, and you know, perhaps something could have happened. Certainly the RCMP were very happy with what we've done over the last couple of years. Our marketing manager expenses last year, 24,000, co-op marketing campaigns at 5,500, and of course the snow clearing budget for a total of just under $34,000. The accomplishments from the part-time marketing and event manager included, but not limited to, the Raven Guide, which is our backcountry guide. It's an awareness tool for those that wish to venture into the backcountry. Our Pemberton Visitor Guide, I believe 15,000 copies have been distributed with that guide currently. The Pemberton Farm Tour, which was an ongoing event where folks, you know, take it upon themselves to go and tour the farms that are members. Range Beyond Range, which was a real collaborative effort between Bridge River, Squamish-Lillooet, and ourselves to begin the project of the Circle Route. Unfortunately, COVID kind of put a damper on it in the very first year as we were planning, and with funding that we received from Destination BC, but that funding continued, was a little bit enhanced, and we were able to push forward, and we'll continue to push forward because our partners want to continue this effort. So we definitely are going to move forward with it. Slow Food Cycle, what a fantastic event this year. We were pretty close to 4,000 folks came out to the Slow Food Cycle. You know, we've got some things that we need to deal with, and traffic management, so on and so forth, but I think it's an event that we hope to continue. The locals really love the event, and we get people from Seattle, lots from Vancouver, Alberta, so it is a good, well-recognized event. Agritourism Wayfinding Sign Project, again, I think it was about $110,000 we picked up from Destination BC that allowed us to actually create a focus on agritourism and wayfinding signage, which you'll now see out there from Sturdy Farm through the valley. You'll see the signage. So that's working well. Not completed. We just got a few more things. I think there's some signage that we're looking to put in the barn, maybe. So we're just waiting on some approvals for that. Sea to Sky cultural marketing program. Tourism Whistler, Tourism Squamish, we all got together. This was an ongoing, marketing event for cultural events, etc. We have our app, membership, sales, and communication. We undertook a new logo design this year, and our web maintenance and social media. So I really kind of mentioned each one of these. So. How do these accomplish serve our area? Well, they market and promote Pemberton as an area as a travel destination of choice. They foster community partnerships that leverage cooperative marketing dollars, and it builds partnerships in other regional destination marketing organizations, DMOs, and recreation organizations to further promote Pemberton and area in a sustainable fashion. It's key to what we're doing. It's a sustainable fashion. When our partners, BC Parks or Flinro, tell us, hey, we got a problem in a certain area, we stop the marketing. It just makes sense that, if Lillooet Nation has an issue with visits to a certain area, we stop the marketing. That's what it's responsible and it's sustainable. The results of these goals directly affects the Village of Pemberton area C residents as well as non-residents and visitors to the area. Pemberton area was promoted in a variety of ways and avenues via the Raven Guide, Range Beyond Range, Pemberton Fire 2 slow food cycle, and the agritourism wayfinding project. And then, the backcountry sanitation infrastructure project, fantastic success. First grant, we've used it up. We built 11 washrooms that are in place and being maintained. And the last set we're done up at Semaphore. We hellied into Semaphore, had the pleasure of directing the loads and where they were being dropped up at Semaphore, and we've got a lot of praise for having done that up at Semaphore. It's attracting people. It's absolutely attracting people. We're gonna have to do more work up there. Okay. So the Range Beyond Range Circle route was promoted by from June to September. $22,000 in online marketing, advertising marketing. Sea to Sky Cultural campaign with Whistler Squamish promoted Pemberton's cultural offerings. So there was a $43,000 investment in there. And the Mountain Biking BC campaign had a $38,000 investment. Those aren't the dollars that we actually put into it, but those are the shared dollars amongst us all. So we definitely working with our partners. So some of the marketing things that again that we've been working on. The guide really came across really well this year. And there's some of the other work that's gone in. You can see the farm tour up at the Helmers. You can see the Range Beyond Range is focused in there. We are talking about the Outback a fair bit these days. 2022 highlights included the slow food cycle, which was so happy to get that back on track. And then you can see our new logo and logo for social media, etc. So 2023, happy to announce that Tourism Pemberton has hired an executive director. We had, gonna say about 14 applicants, 15 applicants, including one from Seattle. So that effort is done. I think she is just signing a contract, and Jen Girardi is our successful applicant. So she's going to take over a lot of she's taking over the marketing role that Carly Cedric brought to us. Carly is now moving on, leaving the organization. Her personal business is growing, so this made sense. As you know, volunteers is the hardest thing these days. Finding volunteers to come on board and want to participate, be part of. And we so appreciate Ted and Russell representing us with their boards and clearly giving a picture of what's going on. We're going to continue with the co-op marketing campaigns, continue participation in the Sea to Sky Cultural Connector with Tourism Whistler and Tourism Squamish. The Sea to Sky mountain biking campaign we've agreed to go forward with. The Bridge River and that would be the Circle Tour. We also are hoping that this year we're going to be able to update some videos that we currently have on our website that are fairly outdated. So we hope to bring in a videographer to help us create some new videos. So our budget for 2023. So again, 2022 membership fees. I'm sorry, this should be 2023 budget. Membership fees, 8,500. The PDIF funding of 20 gives us 28,500. Our executive director is coming in. It's going to come in at 26,250. It is a part-time role, by the way. And Pemberton video production and co-op marketing. So we're a little bit over, but we do have some funds that we should be fine. We should be, good to go. So thank you again. And do you have questions?
Just a compliment. Yeah, just thank you for all your hard work. I know how much time you guys put in, and the promotion that you've done to the community is amazing. All those washroom facilities that are all over out and about, that's a huge benefit to the area, obviously. So if we can get more in strategic locations, that's an excellent thing. So funding, we need to talk about that over and above or offline or whatever, but no, you guys have done an amazing job promoting the area, so good on you for doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just add that, Destination BC provides us with a grant writer. And like he's at the other end of the phone. I pick it up and I can ask questions, and he's available, ready to go, ready to talk. And he's always looking for opportunities for Pemberton, Tourism Pemberton. Destination BC sees the value in what we've done over the years. That grant that we got for the wayfinding, that was just a handshake. That wasn't, we didn't do anything purposeful to get that grant. Destination BC said, hey, we got an opportunity, interested, in basically a handshake, and we got the money. So it's Jen.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. I just know that I'm involved in tourism with our business, of course, having trail riding business. And we noticed this year that there was a huge uptake in local tourism out of Vancouver and so on. And culturally too, I noticed that there was such a cross section of people coming that never used to come to the valley from the different cultural communities in Vancouver. And it was just awesome to see. So thank you for all your hard work.
Again, we must say that we wish to do this sustainably. We do not want to do this just, you know, a la carte, just run with things. It has to be done sustainably. We recognize that people want to get away from the concrete world that they live in, and they are coming. So we have to be prepared. The thing about the washrooms is that we've done something in advance. Most communities are behind and they are trying to play catch up. And you have to have washrooms. I mean, at the end of the day, people are making their own trails for their own washroom use, right? So, and we hope we're going to be able to put more out there, with other grants that are available, et cetera. And we'll keep trying. There's no doubt about it. But yes, we are seeing, as a restaurateur, I see the full gamut of people coming out. People that you would look at and you know this is the very first time that they are talking about going for a hike, whether it's around 1 Mile Lake or you know, just going to see Nairn Falls. It's the very first time that they've ever done something like this. You know it.
Thank you.
I think our challenges are the infrastructure of the community, right? Yeah, you just saw the beginning of it last summer, and it's gonna be big. And I don't think, other than putting a gate up at Nairn Falls across the highway, you're not gonna stop people from coming and enjoying the beauty of this area, so.
Whistler is going to surpass the 3-4 million people eventually. And those people they know they're 20 minutes away from something else. And so they want to see it. You know, days like this, they're going to ski. But on those bluebird days, they want to go for a drive. And that's what they do. So, and we need to be ready.
I just noticed one thing is that a lot of people that I talked to in my yard that were coming this summer chose Pemberton as a destination first. And we might check out Whistler on the way home. So I found that really interesting, that they want maybe more of an authentic experience.
Director
Not that
Hanson,
Whistler can't offer that,
Mike?
go ahead. Director.
Just on the topic of sustainable tourism, which I think is a great emphasis. I was just wondering, you know, there's a question of infrastructure, but also in terms of marketing. And now that you're bringing on an executive director, I know you mentioned, you know, if you become aware of an issue, you know, kind of an area is becoming maybe too popular, you're stopping the marketing. But I was just wondering, in terms of, I guess, preemptive policies about that. And I'm just curious, I'm assuming that there are some in place, and I know it's a massive challenge. I mean, it's been the states you hear about in all the parks, and so I was just wondering a little bit about that.
Joffrey Lakes is the example.
Yeah.
And at this point, Joffrey Lakes has been managed fairly well. BC Parks is going to come out with their numbers soon. We have a fantastic relationship with BC Parks. By the way, the clearing of the parking lot at Nairn Falls, we are no longer a pilot project. So this is something that could potentially spread across the province based on the reaction to what we've done and how we've done it and the communities that have been involved. So BC Parks, they respect us. They respect what we're doing. So you take Joffrey and you look at Joffrey and, you know, our partners with the chamber who run the visitor center. That communication is there to say, yeah, we gotta tone it down. And then our marketing material will not show Joffrey. You know, those who know already know. And so, you know, at the end of the day, we don't have to do much for Joffrey. But you know, that little park with a little bit of falls in it, it's a nice place to camp. It's a nice place to visit, you know, and come to the info center and you can find out about a lot of the activities that are going around, like horseback riding, et cetera, that you can get involved with. And then the different community businesses, the servers, they're all talking about, hey, you know, what you can do, you can do this, you can do that. And nice little track here, you can walk around the 1 Mile Lake, et cetera.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mendonca. on top of the usual marketing, solid work that has been done by Tourism Pemberton over the years, I really appreciate the initiatives like the trailhead work and Nairn Falls clearing. Those are extra things that Tourism Pemberton has taken on and, as you put, added huge value to the community. And I also really appreciate, I think you guys kind of touched on it, we don't need to focus as much on drawing people here. People are naturally starting to search us out because we've been discovered. And so the shift in focus towards how we want people to visit our area, how we maximize it for our community, for our businesses, and the sustainability piece that you guys have focused on, I think is really great. So thanks for the presentation today, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you. Thank you.
I was gonna add that we're down at 1 Mile Lake a lot, and so my staff does a lot of tourism information down there, just because people are always asking,
Yeah.
where's the trail in Nairn, and is there water, and yeah, no water.
And thanks, Chair. We have final delegation today. Karen, please.
I was gonna stand, but can you see me, Mike, if I stand? My back's.
Yeah, totally. However you're comfortable.
I'll just take a moment to quickly explain technology. Thank you, Chair. So Natalie in the corner, she'll be running the presentation for you. You can advance this. There's a slide delay.
Advance it on the side.
Or the arrows. Yeah, there. Those are checked. So thank you very much, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, and Ms. Tomlinson. Thanks for joining us. I know we're a little behind schedule, so thanks for waiting. And the floor is yours.
For those of you that don't know me, I'm Karen Tomlinson. I've been involved with the Pemberton Canoe Association for, I don't know, like almost 20 years now. My current role is past president / registrar. So, but I am available during the day. So this is who you get. Okay. Yeah, so I just wanted to actually start off by saying that I want to thank you guys again for the support that we've had from PVUS for years in our programming and in our equipment and all sorts of stuff. So we are hugely appreciative of that. The programming that we did this year, so we're coming out of COVID into our first full season of being able to have like a lot of our programming come back. So I'm focusing on the sprint program with you because that's where the funding from you guys came from. But we were doing Dragon Boat again for the first time in 2 years this summer. We had our outrigger program going again. Our summer camps were able to run all through COVID, and they were hugely popular, and that hasn't changed in this community. But for our sprint program, those are our numbers for this year. They are lower than last year, and that's not abnormal. The data from BS Sport with the uptick of back into sport was extremely low this year. Canoe Kayak BC was above the average, but still quite low. And so we saw that across lots of programming, especially in the summer, because people were gone on holiday now. Like we have holiday plans and things like that. So like we've seen that across the board. So those are programs that we have been doing for years. One of the new programs that I thought I'd just touch on with you guys is this Indigenous Fundamentals program that we ran this year. So we received a kids sport grant through Canoe Kayak BC to provide funding for free for new to Canada, low income and Indigenous paddling families. So we partnered with the school, Cola Community School. They provided the transportation network to get the kids there from after school to the lake. We provided the staff and the snacks and things like that through the programming. And so we got like I said, a dozen new kids out on the water trying paddling for the first time, which was great to see. So hopefully we can build on that with that school. That seems to be the way to go, is to coordinate with the school. So, and then just in terms of our whole program for sprint, so we had just 29 paddlers involved. We had kids that started in the spring, went through the summer and the fall. So we had lots of repetition of certain kids throughout the programs, but we had 14 new kids joining this year. Regatta attendance was very low for us. I think there was that, I don't know why, I just think that there was just uncomfortable with maybe going out of the community and going to a bigger event or something like that. So hopefully we will see that grow again slowly with all of our programs. Like unfortunately, Dragon Boat program this year, we only had 10 kids come out, so we couldn't race with those kids. But you know, we had 2 years of kids graduating out of that program, no kids coming in at the bottom. So it's going to take a few years of rebuilding to get that Dragon Boat hopefully back up and running again. That's our goal anyway. And then just sort of, you know, these are the things that we think are what our programming do for kids. Like obviously we're getting them outside, which was great during COVID too. Physical activity, working on skill development, endurance, building confidence, you know, taking on more and more challenges with boats as they go up. We have, you know, boats that are for beginner paddlers all the way up to advanced paddlers. So they, after they master one level, it's like, okay, now you move up and you try a tippier boat and you keep working away at that. And then all that group work with team sport. And I think, you know, we see that sport is so good for mental and social health, especially with what we were seeing during COVID. So, and then our Women on the Water program was just a specialized program that allowed the girls to get together and talk about good, you know, positive interactions and things like that. So, and so what we allocated the funds from you guys for this year were a few things. One is we used some of the money to go towards buying a set of stand-up paddle boards with money we had left over from a Jumpstart grant that we got during COVID, and your money and the fact that I shopped on Amazon Prime Day. We were able to get 12 like inflatable paddle boards, and 10 of them are like a smaller scale size. So they're really great for the kids at camp. So it gives us another opportunity for them to try a different type of paddling sport, like doing paddleboard. But on top of that, what the paddle boards do is they allow the kids to learn high kneel canoe in a non-tippy situation. Because that's I don't, if you watch the Olympics, I think you know what I'm talking about. It's you're in a skinny boat and you're on your knee and you're half standing, and it's, if you're trying to learn the stroke but you're also trying to actually just stay in the boat, it's not the most conducive. So in the past, it's been, they learn how to do the paddling stroke on the dock, but now we can now progress to putting them on a flat surface on water where it's a little bit tippy. And so that's been a great asset for us this year. On top of that, Canoe Kayak BC, and I don't know if any of you were down at the lake the week we had this, but Canoe Kayak BC bought a sub polo kit this year. And so we were allowed to borrow it for free. So we had it up here for a week. We were the only club in the province that actually took advantage of having this. I think our lake is very conducive to that. Some of the clubs paddle on rivers and waterways. Some are on huge lakes with lots of wind. So it's pretty ideal for us. You can see the picture. It's an inflatable thing that has a boundary and nets and these special paddles that have a scoop in them that allow you to throw a ball. So it's kind of like lacrosse in a way. Anyway, so we had that for a week and the kids got to play with it at camp. We had a couple of evening events with them. And then we had a Saturday open house and it was really well attended. Lots of people got to go out and try the paddle boards and play this game. It was fun to watch. I didn't participate, but Tracy Rose Pellick and her two friends came out and I don't think they stopped laughing the whole time they were out there because they ended up in the lake about 20 times. So, and then we used it for some equipment repair, maintenance, and then we also put some of the money towards the insurance for our boats. Insurance is something that has gone up tremendously this year, and we suspect again coming up. So we used a part of this money to help support the insurance for all the boats that we have to have at the lake. So moving forward, we we want to keep having the programming that we have, but we'd like to see it build. We'd like to see if we can get some of these kids that are in the sort of beginning stage of paddling to move on to a development stage and get a little bit more into competition and be able to provide programming for that. We want to stick with all the programming that we have as well. One of the things, we have a lot of hiring to do this year. We have probably no returning staff. And so we are going to be posting jobs and hiring for a variety of positions. And so we're looking to hopefully this year hire a program coordinator to take on a lot of the things that I've been doing in the past. So that's the goal for the club. So that's it from me. Unless you have some questions.
Thanks, Karen. Appreciate it. Any questions?
No, just thank you very much. Great program.
Thank you.
For sure. And thanks for your decades of work on it, Karen. You've been a
Yeah.
lifelong.
You might not see me at the next meeting. I'm on my slow departure from the club right now. Very
Yeah,
slow.
I know where I put my money. I'll bet I'll see you in 12 months, but that's just.
Yeah, we'll see.
Thanks for the presentation. Much appreciated.
If you're still gonna do it, then I'm probably still gonna do it with him.
Right.
And he's still kicking around, so.
Awesome.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Mary. Thank you.
Okay, everybody good to move on? We're on 4.1 or on 4, which is the consent agenda. Would anybody like to pull anything out or move approval of the consent agenda?
I'll move it.
Seconder. Director Kennett, any opposed? Motion carries. Any business arising? Hearing none, we're on to number 6, staff reports, 6.1, SLRD CAO verbal report. Mr. Dalton.
Just one item, Chair, it's to try and find another day for next month's PVUS, given the conflict that was highlighted with some local government training, I believe. So looking to see if the committee would like to move that forward to the week of the 2nd of February.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's going to be a number of delegations for for the budget services presentations. Are we going to be able to? Is that a feasible move? I mean, I'm totally happy to go February 2nd. First of all, if the rest of the committee is.
Yeah, I can't speak to individual delegations at this point, but I'm sure between now and then we can coordinate with folks that change the date.
Okay, is everybody good with February 2nd? Should we, sorry, yes, can we start it earlier in the day on the 2nd? Can we do like a 9 or a 10 o'clock start then? Does that work for staff?
Me.
Sure. Does that work for staff?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so a motion to reschedule the February 9th PVUS meeting to February 2nd at 10 a.m. Moved by Director Mack, seconded by Director Ramsden. Any discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. Anything else, Mr. Dalton?
No, thank you.
VOP CAO verbal update. Ms. Tracy.
I have no updates.
Thank you. We're on to 6.3 then, information report on the 2022 annual Bio Blitz. Are we getting an actual presentation on this, or we just questions and receipt?
Just questions.
Okay. Are there any questions on the report as presented in your agenda? Seeing none, would somebody like to move receipt? Can't see hands. Director Mack, seconded by Director Kennett. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. I think it's no comments, but I think it's a great program, and I appreciate the update. Brings us to 6.4. We're on the PDIF progress report. This one is fairly clearly laid out in our agenda. Is this one being presented, or is this for questions? Presented, okay.
Chair, I'm happy to do a brief presentation, if you'd like, just to give some context.
Sure, if you want to give a quick presentation. This is on long term and that, so I think it's fairly, but yeah, you do your thing.
Exactly, and to your point, it's fairly self-explanatory. You have seen a number of delegations today. Organizations presenting their progress reports, which is a requirement of the program. I did want to just briefly say that I appreciate the agenda layout means the delegations often come before the reports. So I just wanted to present a standing offer. If you do want a context before those delegations start, that's a standing offer that I'm happy to provide that for the committee. So that's an offer for you, the chair. There are two organizations that haven't presented their progress reports today. You will be seeing the Sea to Sky Community Services in March with an update. They weren't able to spend all of their funds by this time, but they do have a plan in place. So that will be coming back a little later. And the farmers market as well will be coming at a later date. So again, just in terms of process, now that all of the organizations that have done their progress reports, if they have another year of funding left, which they all do, we will go ahead and disperse those funds in another couple of weeks. So this would be the time for the committee to raise any concerns that they have, but there's no resolution required for that. That's just part of the administration. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you so much. Any questions or concerns that the committee would like to raise with regards to this fund and the presentations we've seen? Again, I can't see hands. So if there's none, I will look for a motion to receive Ms. Campbell's.
I'll move that.
Seconder, Director Kennett. Any discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. So now we're on 6.5, which is the PDF funding applications for the 2023 intake. Ms. Campbell.
Thank you, Chair. I will do a quick presentation on this one, if that's okay. This is in regards to Delegation 3.1. We heard from Pemberton Animal Wellbeing Society. So they have put in an application. They've come before you with their presentation, and it's time to make a decision to ask the committee for a decision on that. I can also provide a quick update on the Pemberton Youth Soccer Association, which was referred back to staff at the last meeting, sorry. So as part of this report, we have provided a bit of an updated budget, items that have been approved and moved into approved, and you do see the Pemberton Youth Soccer Association request on there. However, I can update that there are alternative funds sourced for that. So just want to highlight that here because it does have an impact on the budget. It does potentially, if that application is withdrawn, then that frees up funds for this year and next year as well. No other real budget consideration updates there. So it's just stepping through the applications one by one and understanding how the committee wishes to move forward. So Chair, I believe that's back to yourself.
Thank you so much. So we have enough funds, just to be clear, we have enough funds to cover the requests, with everything that Ms. Campbell just said, with the soccer request, etc. For this year. Next year at this rate, we would find ourselves short if there is no requisition increase or market increase. Anticipating some small market increase, we're hopeful to see some increase in the budget. Is that a fair summary?
Let me think. Because the Pemberton Youth Soccer Association funding appears to have moved out of PDIF, we have more funds than previously presented. So I think at this stage, with the applications that we know and that we have on file, we are looking okay. However, we do have we would be anticipating a number of new applications towards the end of this year for organizations that might be coming off funding this year. So we took a look, and even with those, we were looking okay. I believe you do have your budget discussions are underway under the next couple of months. So we can certainly look at what the impact of changes to the requisition would be if that is possible. And if that is something that the committee would feel would be useful, and if there is room to do that, I'd have to refer to Suzanne for that particular piece.
For sure.
But at this stage, the application before you today would be covered.
Well, that's good. Any questions from the committee? Again, can't see hands. Go ahead, Director Kennett.
So just to reiterate in my little brain here, so we're funding their request for the nets for the soccer. Or is that going to be like over the course of one net this spring and one? I'm just getting more into specifics just to see what's coming out of that.
Okay, and thank you for clarifying. I was not sure, are we looking at both of these applications together? Or would you like to step through them one by one? I can certainly give more.
I was just confused about that.
No problem. Yeah, so for the Pemberton Youth Soccer Association, I'll do that update now. So they had initially requested funding for 2 sets of nets, 4 nets in total, through the Pemberton District Initiative Fund. And they have, based on the information through the last committee, they have funding has been generously provided by Director Mack through select funds for 1 set of nets. And the village has funding that they may be able to use pending budget discussions and approval for the 2nd set of nets. So that is where that application is set up. So that would mean that funding request would be withdrawn from PDIF. So we would not need to put that $30,000 into that particular purchase.
Okay, thank you.
Does that help?
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. So what kind of motion are we looking for here to approve the funding? We're looking for approval of the funding application from PAWS. And that's it then, right?
So it would be the amount that you wish to fund them to, and just noting that their request is over the maximum for the long-term funding. If you're willing to go ahead with that funding, it will just insert a notwithstanding resolution in there just to show that is that it is above the maximum. Thank you.
So where would the committee like to go on that? Go ahead.
How much over are they? Or I guess that doesn't really matter, does it? If you're over, you're over.
It's $3,000 over. So the long-term funding maximum stated in the policy is $12,000. They've asked for $15,000. The committee did approve that last year, just for that context as well.
And do we have the money to approve it this year? We do? Then I would make a motion that we approve it.
Okay, is there a seconder?
Second that.
Any further discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Campbell, do you need anything else from the committee?
No, the just to let you know that for the nets, we'll keep that application. The recommendation is to keep that application active until that budget approval is like we said, and that's done, and then I'll just contact an organization to withdraw the application.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I called the question, right? Yeah, so if we're all good there, thank you very much, Ms. Campbell. We will be moving on to our budget work now. Thanks, Philippa. And so wait for Ms. LaFrance to join us. She's coming on remotely. Good afternoon, Ms. LaFrance. Thank you for joining us. Before I turn it completely over to you and you launch into your presentation, I just wanted, for the clarity of the committee, to see the direction we're trying to go today. So you're presenting the first presentation of some of these budgets. I'm assuming, and tell me if I'm on the right track, we're not looking to approve. I mean, if there's anything that's really straightforward, we could approve and put it to bed right away. But most of these services are going to have presentations for them in the next meeting or two. So I'm assuming with that in mind, we're not here to approve those budgets today. We're to hear what they look like, perhaps raise any concerns or thoughts, and then deliberate more on them once we've had our presentations. Is that what we're looking for today, Mr. Frost?
Yes, exactly. This is just the first go around, the first review, and the 2022 forecast figures aren't final yet. So we'd probably want to wait to approve anything until February or March meeting. And then, yes, you're correct about the February meeting too. We'll have the delegates, the local service representatives of the societies invited to discuss their plans for 2023 and their budgets.
Perfect. So this is our first look. We can make our first look comments and then continue conversation after we have those presentations. Awesome. Thank you. I'll turn the floor to you.
All right. So my plan today is just to share my screen and then go over the same agenda that you have in front of you, but then so everybody's on the same page. And so I'll just share my screen right now. All right, so we're going to go over the 2023 first draft of the PVUS budgets. There's just a few that will be missing in this package that will be showing up in February, and that's the Pemberton Fire Rescue Service and the Pemberton Recreation Services that are highlighted in this page in front of you. So these budgets use the most recent assessments, which is the 2023 completed roll. BC Assessment has announced there's some errors in this roll that they're going to be fixing in mid-January, and that is revolving around cooperative housing land values. These are being counted twice currently. They recognize this, but it was too late to make the changes before the roll was due. So hopefully in February meeting, we'll have an updated completed roll as well. I'm going to also have a little review of the non-market change for 2023. So right now, you just see the changes from 2022 revised roll to the 2023 completed roll. And the total change is 19% for the two services. The Village of Pemberton having a bigger chunk of that increase of almost 25% versus electoral or AAC is 12.8%. So in essence, the requisitions would be changed. The allocation would fall heavier on Village of Pemberton this year versus last year. And so the non-market change will review any kind of new inventory, which is really key to understanding what has increased in the tax base. And so that will come in February. So these first budgets, the total requisition has increased 14%. The Pemberton Search and Rescue budget shows a slight decrease in requisition. The Pemberton Refuse Grounds shows the main increase of 28%. 28.7%, and we'll get into the reasons why in just a few minutes. And then the Pemberton District and Museum also has requested an increase of 45%. That percentage, of course, is always a little bit skewed when you're looking at what the basis of that original amount is, but I'll get into that as well. And the Pemberton Library showed a slight reduction of about 6%, and all other services are flat to last year. I'm just going to go to the first information sheet that shows the requisition adjustments. And so as you see, the 2023 tax rate right now shows it's actually a decrease versus the 2022 tax rate. And so this change shows a reduction. However, that's kind of unknown as to whether it's really a pure reduction, because we want to look at the market changes in coordination with that. So in February, we'll have a better idea of what actually increased in the assessment base to know what the average increase would be, or if there won't be an increase to the average taxpayer. Currently, it shows a reduction just due to the increase in assessments. All right, so these budgets include forecasted amounts for 2022 that are estimated and they're not final, so they're subject to change. We try to get as final as possible, as early as possible, but we're still receiving December invoices. The remaining PVUS budgets and the 5-year plan will be brought to the February PVUS meeting, as well as the non-market change. And the local service representatives will be invited to discuss their specific plans for 2023. Within the package, you'll have the requested amounts from each local service representative. So Permanent Search and Rescue has requested their amount, and that is included in the package. And we'll go to Pemberton Refuse Grounds. So currently, Pemberton Refuse Grounds shows a deficit carry forward of $44,759 into 2023. This isn't finalized, of course. We're still reviewing December revenues as well as December expenses. And this is mainly due to the $60,000 in short-term borrowing that was budgeted in 2022 not being borrowed. And there's reasons behind that. Mainly, short-term borrowing is not affordable right now. So I'm very concerned about borrowing too much. The short-term borrowing rate, every time I look at it, it's been increasing. Right now, it's 4.8%. For reference, last year, it was about 1%. So it's increased quite a bit. So about 100,000 of borrowing ends up being about $360 right now, currently. So just wanted, that's per month, sorry, $360 per month. So I'm just careful not to borrow too much. Obviously, the deficit is less than the amount of borrowing that we were required, but the budget stated. And potentially we can look at borrowing more to reduce the requisition, but that will be a discussion for February's meeting. So there's slightly less tipping fees in 2022 versus prior years as well. And not concerning amount, but just slightly less. And the new transfer station and the new service contracts were completed and were running as of November 1st or November 4th, I believe it was technically 2022. So this 2023 year is a bit of a unknown as to what kind of unknown expenses might crop up with the new service, the new area, the new land, and new maintenance requirements and things like that. So the new contract services includes an additional $12,000 to run the free store and $30,000 for machinery costs. And I believe PVUS was already involved in these discussions about that contract. And the contracted services also include GFL contracts, so for the actual tipping of composting and refuse and recycling. And there's also a $5,000 contingency added in 2023, just in case there's unknown service needs for 2023. And we are also transferring $25,000 into the capital reserve. Oops, and I forgot to leave the balance. It was $111,000 for this service at the end of 2023. So I'll just pause there for any questions from the committee.
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah,
Farmer.
it's Russell. So we are going to have a deficit going forward for the refuse, for the new transfer station of $44,759.
That's potentially the number. It's not finalized at this point, but yes, that's what these budgets are showing currently.
Okay, so, and we don't want to borrow the 60,000 because of the volatile interest rates or whatever. So I guess what I'm going to say, in order to not have a deficit going forward, would it be possible to use Area C gas tax funds to cover that amount?
I'd have to do a thorough review because the gas tax funds can only be used for capital items, as you know. So it would have to be towards the fixed asset, which I believe we've already 100% recovered through borrowing. So I'd have to do just a review if there's anything remaining, which I don't believe there is.
Okay, could you do that?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll just tack it on to next month's discussions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions so far? Again, I can't see hands. Mr. France, the only thing, I mean, I was expecting an increase about this much with the new transfer station and the borrowing attached to it and the new operation. So that wasn't a surprise. And maybe this was covered in previous discussions, but I guess I'd like to understand a little bit without nitpicking, understand why the free store costs $12,000 to run. That seems like a slightly high number to me, but other than that, everything else so far that I've seen on there is what I anticipated.
Yeah, I thought that there was discussions potentially enclosed on this contract, but Mary Lou is sitting in the waiting room that might be able to discuss things. Obviously, can't discuss contracts in open, but why the free store, what is involved in running the free store.
And if this is going to be covered in next month's presentation, I can totally wait. Like that.
No, I think we can discuss this. Yep, for sure. Because I'm not sure what operationally is required to run the free store.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Levin, for joining us. We're just having a look at the refuse budget, and as I was just saying, I expected the increases with the new site and the borrowing attached and all that. I was just a little curious as to why it requires $12,000 to run the free store. What's that budget line about?
So we wanted to have a separate line in the contract in regards to the free store to really understand how much it really costs to run a free store properly. We came across that like in various of our facilities where the free store is being not as well maintained. There's too much accumulation, and then we need to throw it to the garbage at the taxpayers' money cost at the end of the day. So we wanted them to really have a good look at the free store and maintain it properly. They need to go through all the items at the end of each month to see what is still good, what should be thrown away. So there's nothing that stay in the free store for a very, very long time. And obviously that comes at a cost, and that was what it came back at.
So thank you, that makes sense. We've all seen free stores that just become junk piles after a while. So no, I respect that. And so at the end of the year, are you going to be able to perhaps like track how much was required to maintain that and make an adjustment for next year, possibly for less or hopefully not more, but.
Yeah, that was the intent, the SRD staff to come back to PVUS to provide an overview of the first year of the free store, like how much it cost, but also like how much items were thrown away at the end of the day. I was there just yesterday, and it's well maintained. It's very well organized. So I'm very pleased with the free store right now.
Great, thank you for that information. I appreciate it. Is there any other questions for Ms. LeBlanc while we have her online? Again, I can't see hands. Hearing none. Thank you, Ms. LeBlanc. I'll turn it back to Ms. LaFrance.
All right, so I guess we can go to the next service, which is the Pemberton TV service, Pemberton TV and radio. So as you know, this service hasn't been running and it shows a zero requisition, and just using all the available funds for the current expenses, which are just the small admin fee, any legal expenses. And we're keeping a very small legal expense, just in case we need to look at the society as they want to dissolve. And so potentially the assets within that land, we might have to be involved with as well, because we hold the lease for that land. So we're keeping a little bit of legal in there. The property and equipment insurance is still valid. We're still insuring the equipment. I have let them know that it's not running, it's not a service, but we still want to insure it. And we are still paying for the hydro, and there's also a small staff time allocation as well. The hydro, for discussion, I'd like to discuss canceling this hydro attached to the service, and just to save a little bit of funding. And as we don't have the capacity currently to manage this service, I don't see it being in place for 2023. So I'd like to bring that option to the PVUS committee. You're muted, Mike, sorry.
Thanks for that. First of all, I'll look for questions. Any questions from the committee? Go ahead, Director Kennett.
I was just wondering, since we have shut this service down, has there been any negative feedback from the community generally that staff has heard on or anything?
Good question.
I haven't been made aware of any complaints.
Okay. And with regards to the hydro, is that you would look for a motion? Is that something that the committee would actually?
Yeah, well, I was just thinking, being that we don't need it, we don't need the hydro, we might as well cancel it, right? That's just my.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense to me. So do you actually need a motion on that for staff to make that decision?
I'll make that motion if necessary. I mean, it just makes sense to have hydro pull the meter.
Yeah.
And if it ever needs to get reinstated, that can be done easy enough.
All right, let's do it in the form of a motion, then it's in the books there. So moved by Director Mack, seconded by Director Kennett. Any discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. No more questions on that. We'll go on to the museum.
All right, so the Pemberton Museum has requested their budget for 2023 and provided a 5-year plan. They did request an increase. In 2022, the request was $149,992. This year they want $217,885. And mainly this is due to increased operating expenses, including salaries or honoraria. They will be available, most likely will be here February for the meeting as a delegate. I haven't invited them yet because I know that the meeting date might have changed concerning this February meeting. Yeah. But any questions on this budget? Did you want to drill down any further into this request, or wait till the society members are available to discuss?
I think personally, I think we could wait for the service providers to come report on it. Honestly, my first reaction was that's a very hefty increase, considering a lot of the other services are bringing in quite lean budgets, but I'm happy to wait for the museum to present and give their rationale, if the rest of the committee is.
Yeah, I would like to, have them explain too,
Sure.
Because maybe they have very valid, a very valid reason for this. I know that museum with the added facilities, buildings, it's a pretty dynamic area. It's getting more and more so every year. So yeah, I'd like to hear what they have to say.
Okay. So let's wait for their presentation. Is there any lines that anybody wanted to look at right now, or we're all good to wait till next month on that?
I just wanted to make a comment, Mike, just that I was speaking to a board member of the museum last week, and their take on it is, of course, the increased costs of trying to find very good people
Mhm.
And I think that's part of their reasoning
Yeah.
for
for
the
sure.
increase.
Yeah, totally. It was pretty clear in the report that and that's something all our organizations are struggling with for sure, right? Including our local governments. So yeah, that's for sure part of it, but glad to hear from them next month. Okay, then we're on to the library.
Yeah, so the library also requested their budget for 2023 and their 5-year request, and it's just slightly less than previous years. So I'm assuming no concerns with this budget.
No, surprised, but
All right, and then I didn't receive a request as of today for the Area C Village of Pemberton Cemetery, but we are following up with them and hope to have something in February and also have them come as a delegate to discuss. So right now I just used what they requested last year for 2023, which is the same, which is flat to 2022, which is $2,500. And then any questions on the cemetery? I'm assuming none.
nope.
Sounds good.
All right, and the final budget is the Pemberton Valley Trail Service. And this requisition currently is showing flat to 2022. However, we're currently in the midst of completing the maximum requisition reviews. And these will be brought to the January board meeting for request for a decision. And I believe this service is able to increase 25% to $78,125. That doesn't mean you have to increase the taxation. I'm just saying that there could be additional room available, whereas we were working at the maximum in 2022. So the 2023 budget also includes an increase to the PVTA amount, which is a 25% increase to 25,000. I have talked to the Trails coordinator, and we're going to invite the PVTA to come discuss their plans as well for these funds in 2023. So they'll be at the February meeting. And I've also just carried forward the 2022 expenses for the Riverside property, and I'll talk with the Trails coordinator to get more of a detailed. This request might have changed, and I just haven't received that change as of yet. So this will be updated in the February budget as well. Perfect. And so there was some funds remaining in 2023 currently, so that's been transferred to reserves, 5,090. That can be pulled for future years, but most likely with discussions to come and this might be adjusted in the February budgets.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. France, I've had a few conversations over the last months with PVTA members, and there was not, I don't want to call it frustration, but there was recognition that their budget hadn't gone up for the last few years due to the requisition ceiling, and now we have a little room. 25,000 that's the total that they're looking for at this point, because I had a sense that they were looking for an even bigger increase. So that's what they've come in at, or are they going to refine that even more before we see them?
Well, it's a little bit of a odd situation, this PVTA amount, because normally with contributions to societies, they're funding the service that the SLRD has as a bylaw, but these, from what I understand, is they're using the funds to do other trails that not necessarily SLRD trails. So there is just a bit of confusion as how they fall into this service. And I think that when they come as a delegation, we can, maybe straighten some things out, and then maybe have them as like more of a local service contribution. where they would fall under the policy we have, I think it's 2.14, where they'd have to supply their financial statements and all that backup for this contribution to happen if they want something greater than 25,000. This 25,000 was recommended by the US Department as the 2023 payment.
I see. And would they, with everything you just said, have the opportunity if they wanted, or does it make sense to look at it in the sense that if they have project specific funding, there's a couple, that's outside their normal operations, would they be able to apply for funds to us in any way to sort of add to their budget? So they have their ongoing budget and operation costs and all that, just like every other service, and they got their regular budget. But if they wanted to accomplish a specific project or two, do they have the ability to access other funding or ask for other funding through us?
Yeah, I couldn't see why not. They're just another recreation service provider that could apply for the PDIF Recreation Fund.
Okay, because I suggested that to them, that there was, again, and I want to bring everybody together. I don't want everybody to have the same information here at the table. I just wanted to flush out so that we can have this conversation next month. Because I got the sense that they were looking for more funds for some specific projects, but they couldn't apply to PDIF because they already received funding from the SLRD, therefore, or from PVUS, therefore they couldn't apply to PDIF. So I just want to flush that out because that might be coming up for discussion next week.
Allison might be in the waiting room that might be able to describe more of the PVTA and what they do for the Pemberton Valley Trail Service, because there is that unknown as to, from my knowledge, as to what they actually do.
Again, I'm happy to wait till next month. I just wanted to throw that out on the table to see what options might be available, but I'm happy to have the whole picture painted for us next month with
Okay.
and Allison. Unless,
all right.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee or thoughts on this? Don't think I see any hands. So at this point, Director LaFrance, did you have anything else to add, or are we just looking to move receipt at this point?
Nothing else to add at this point.
Okay, so I'll look for a motion to receive this budget report. Moved by Director Mack, seconded by Director Kennett. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. France.
Thank you.
Takes us to 7, decision on late business. Business, we have none. Director's notice of motion. Motion to adjourn, please. Moved by
Motion to adjourn.
Director Mack, seconded by Director Kennett. Any opposed?